Hi. Oh, I need to shuffle back a bit. I'm in front of my window here and we're trialing and error in this. I also have this little microphone, which I am using for the first time. So let me know how you think the sound quality is and if I should just scrap it. My name is Charlotte. It is lovely to meet you. This is the very first video that will be going up on my YouTube, which is exciting and scary in equal measures. I really probably should have done an introduction video first, but that will come soon because I really want to do a little bit of a reading vlog jumping into this book, which is My Lady Jane. Now, you may have heard of this from the Amazon TV show. If you haven't, go watch it. It is amazing. It is a historical fiction, but wait, it is also fantasy because there are shape-shifting people in this, and the comedy, it's unmatched. The romance, it's unmatched. Giggling and grinning and having the time of my life, and the sound score on that show is phenomenal. It is entirely female led and I love it so much. It is amazing. And apparently the show finishes only halfway through this first book, and it's not a cliffhanger. Don't get me wrong, it's not a cliffhanger. It is brilliant. You should watch it. But it ends halfway through the book. So I'm like, well, obviously I need to know what happens next. I need to know. I'm obsessed with this show. I love it so much. I really want to know what's going on and what's going to happen next. And I just thought, I have a day off. I'm going to go get in the bath, got my trusty pencil, and I'm going to underline as I go. And I will change it into nicer colors afterwards, but obviously pencil for the bath. I'm so excited to dive into this. So excited. This genuinely took over my life for a few months and I have rewatched it so many times. I had a brilliant time. It is just hilarious and it makes me laugh so much and swoon. And I need that right now because I'm having a bit of a bad day. So we're going to read a great book that I know is going to be great because like I said, I'm obsessed with the show. And we're going to talk about it. So yeah, and also if you haven't watched it, go watch it. Let's up the views on Amazon Prime because maybe we can convince them to renew for the second season. And again, there is no cliffhanger, so it's okay. You can go watch it, have a fantastic time, and then be as mad as me that there is not a second season. Let's go. So I didn't get particularly far when I was in the bath. I got up to page 40 and then I stopped and admittedly watched some TikTok on my phone. My initial thoughts are that it is different to the show. Not necessarily bad different, just different initially. And I mean, two main differences going in straight away, which aren't spoilers at all. But first, I realised I didn't actually tell you much about the book other than it's historical with some fantasy and shapeshifters. Basically, you have the shapeshifters, which are the Ethians, and then you have the non-shapeshifters, the normal humans as such, which are verities. Now, this is a take on Protestants and Catholics, and it is using this kind of fantasy element and adding in this kind of comedy to explain and use it as kind of like a metaphor for what was going on at that time period. This is obviously, so My Lady Jane is set after Henry VIII dies, so Edward, his young son, is on the throne, and you have Mary and Elizabeth, who are his sisters, his half-sisters, who want to be on the throne, but they're women, so they can't be, and Lady Jane is their cousin. So she has royal blood, but she's not a child of Henry VIII. So that's kind of the setting of where we're at. And yeah, so the main two differences that within these first 40 pages, and like I said, these aren't spoilers at all, but really stick out, is that the male lead in this, in the film, he's called Guilford Dudley. In this, he's called Gifford Dudley, and he prefers to go by G, as in just the letter G. It's so different. He just goes by Guilford in the show, but his name's not even Guilford in here, it's Gifford, which to me just reminds me of Gifford Circus, but that is a very localized thing, I think, to where I live. That Gifford Circus is a very British thing. In fact, I think it may be a very Cotswoldy thing. It's just the local circus that goes around here, and it's called Gifford Circus. So immediately I couldn't take him seriously. But then I suppose the whole point is I'm not necessarily supposed to take any of this seriously because it's a comedic take on all of it. And I love it. And I also want to say that I absolutely love the dedication at the beginning here, where it goes, "For everyone who knows there was enough room for Leonardo DiCaprio on that door, and for England, we're really sorry for what we're about to do to your history. And as someone who is from England, I forgive you. It's okay. This is hilarious. I love it." The other main difference from the show initially is that in the show, if you are Ethian, so a shapeshifter, you basically aren't allowed. You're like hunted down, you're killed, it's a massive secret if you're Efian, and no one kind of wants to be found out to be Efian. But at the beginning of this, it's very clear who's Efian and who's not. I mean, some people have hidden things, but I mean, Henry VIII himself was an Efian. King Edward, whilst he isn't an Efian, or he doesn't know if he is or not, he said he hasn't like turned if he is one, which I suppose is the whole Protestant Catholic thing going on there. It makes it more obvious as a metaphor there. So, you know, Henry VIII turned into an Efian later in life. He revealed himself to be that, to be a Protestant, an Efian, and then his son is like, he wants to be a Protestant, but he's not sure if he is. He might just be Catholic. He really doesn't know. He might be a Verity. He might be an Efian. If he's an Efian, he hasn't shown that in himself yet. He hasn't changed into this other animal yet. It hasn't like awakened in him. So it's kind of known from the beginning. And the book starts similar to how the show starts, which is that they are setting up the marriage between Lady Jane Grey and Guildford or Gifford Dudley in the books. And immediately you know who is an Efian, who isn't an Efian, what's going on. It's not a secret from the crown. And even within like the courtly upper circles, it's like suspicious. Like Elizabeth's, Princess Elizabeth, so Henry VIII's daughter Elizabeth, her mother was known to be an Efian, so a Protestant, and so it's like, is she one herself? Is Elizabeth one as well? We don't know. No one knows. She might be, she might not be. Elizabeth hasn't shown, just the way that Edward hasn't shown. So it is very interesting. There are those kind of key differences, but I do think it is a very interesting take and a very interesting way of using like fantasy as a metaphor, and I really, really like that about it. I think it's really cleverly done. I really appreciate that. So the book is different, quite different so far from the series. That's not a bad thing, but those like were the main differences that are quite big main differences that jumped out immediately. I can understand why things were changed. I can understand why they changed his name from Gifford, or G, to Guildford in the show, because I mean, Guildford Dudley is a much more appealing name for like a historical / romantasy male lead than Gifford, or just G is. I will say that. So yeah, but I am really enjoying it. I think that I'm going to have to do a comparison, like a screen to like book to screen, kind of like, maybe I'll do like a whole video on it at some point, and I quite enjoy doing the book to screen for different things, so I might make that into like a little mini series, and we can go into this in more depth with that. I am really enjoying it so far. I am only 40 pages in though. I literally just got to the chapter where the title is Gifford in brackets, call him G exclamation mark bracket. I can't take it seriously sometimes, and I have highlighted a couple of things, including like, so obviously Mary she's Catholic, obviously that's where she becomes Bloody Mary after she does take the throne eventually in English history, so she doesn't like Protestants, and that is why she's known as Bloody Mary. In her reign she goes and kills all these Protestants, and Edward makes this remark which is like, oh, I don't know if I want her to be queen afterwards, because he's very sick and he's dying, so he's thinking about who would take over afterwards, and he's like, I don't know if I want it to be Mary, because she doesn't like Efians, so she would just kill them all. And he goes, Mary would not tolerate the Efians, in brackets, she preferred them extra crispy, as we mentioned earlier. It made me laugh. And there was nothing, what was the other thing I underlined? It was so early on, I think it was like within the first couple of pages. Oh, it was here. This was when like it reveals that Henry VIII had turned into, so he turns into a lion. That was the Efian that he was, that he suddenly revealed himself and he shapeshifted into this lion. And it said the head of the Verity Church, so the Catholic Church, was not pleased with King Henry's decision, which was that he was going to give Efians like full rights. But every time Rome sent a missive denouncing the decree, the Lion King ate the messenger, hence the phrase, don't eat the messenger. This is another thing that I loved about the show, and that I really like about the book as well. All of these common phrases that you find, like don't eat the messenger, they obviously have very different meanings in history, how they've actually come to be, but they completely changed them up in the show, and in this book already it's seeing it there, where it's just like it's forming its own history of how these phrases came about, and I really, really like it. And I really like that was like quite early on as well, that I'm like, this is the part that is still going to be in the book. This wasn't just in the show, because it was something I really, really loved. The Lion King ate the messenger, hence the phrase, don't eat the messenger. That was its origin. I love it so much. This is the kind of like humour that I really enjoyed with the show, and I think is going to be really fantastic in this book as well. So yes, I'm only 40 pages in so far, but I'm really enjoying it. It is different to the show though, I will say that. And I will say that I think the soundtrack of the show made a massive difference, like a massive difference. Like they curated that soundtrack so well, so that when you are watching the show and you're listening to it, everything fits, everything works, and it does it in such a way that it really like empowers every scene that it's going through. It enhances the comedy, enhances the action. It just is so amazing. It makes every emotion come to life. And just at the beginning, even when I'm reading this, I could almost hear some of the soundtrack for like certain scenes where like they're straight from the book, or like they're slightly changed, but they're basically the scene directly from the book, and I can hear the music that went along with it. And I kind of miss that part of the show because it was so cinematic in that way, that it was just such an experience and it worked so well, that reading the book I'm like, no, I crave that background music because it was just so perfect for the scene and for what was going on in it and the characters. And it was a phenomenal soundtrack. So I do recommend you go at least look up the soundtrack for this show, even if you're not going to read the book or you don't want to watch it, because it was such a phenomenal soundtrack, curated so well, amazing. So that is one thing I might need to actually just put the album playlist on as I'm reading. I think that might be something that I do in the future, just because it was amazing. I really enjoyed it. So yeah, I am definitely going to be continuing with this. I think I'm gonna take it in like slow chunks. This is one of those books that, so I don't normally, I was gonna say enjoy comedy in books, that's not correct. I mean the like slapstick comedy, which this kind of comes under a little bit at times, is not normally my thing. I was very surprised with how much I liked the show My Lady Jane, because it is so different from what I normally like. I'm not normally a comedy person. I normally find most comedy quite cringy. That's just who I am as a person, and I try to get over that. I try to watch stuff, but a lot of the time I just find it cringy. So I didn't expect to love My Lady Jane like I did, and I did become obsessed with it. And then I started reading the book, and I was like, okay, this was something that going in, I was like, it might be different to the film, the show. I might find that actually in the book it just comes across as cringy. I don't know. It doesn't come across as cringy. It comes across as amazing. The same way that there is in the show, there is narrators for this. It's not told from, well, it is kind of told from the point of view of the characters. There's multiple POVs in it, but it's also told through the lens of these incredibly unreliable narrators, and I love it. These narrators are so unreliable that I'm pretty sure it's on like the very first page or something where it says, let's see if I can find it. Where is it? Basically it was that like they changed everything for whatever they wanted it to be. I can't find it. I'll have to find it. But yeah, basically they were like that if we didn't like a name, we just changed it because we didn't like it. If we didn't like how something turned out, we just changed the story. And I know the whole point of this book is that it is a change on history, but it just makes me laugh because the entire book is just these unreliable narrators, and you don't know, it says narrators with an S, so you don't know how many unreliable narrators there are. It like implies there's more than one person telling the story, almost like there's a group of people sat around going, what is the funniest way we could tell history and how can we change it? It's almost like that. So I can kind of imagine that's what the authors are like. So these authors are almost acting like a group of unreliable narrators, which is really amusing to read. And I thought that it would be something that I might have to take in little chunks, and I think that is true. I think I'm definitely going to have to read this in little chunks, so I'm not going to be like finishing the book in the vlog here. I don't even think I'm going to be reading more than that 40 pages in this vlog, so I know it's not much of like a reading vlog as such, but I wanted to get my kind of initial thoughts and feelings about the book and the show out, and I really enjoy this. It's really good. I do really recommend it so far. It is something that I'm going to take like bit by bit by bit, but it is so much fun. And again, the show, I'm obsessed. And do you know what? Immediately after putting this down now, I'm going to turn this off and I'm going to go put on the show. The show, nothing can beat the show. The thing is that whilst I know I have to take this because I'm reading it like a little bit at a time, I have binge watched the show like multiple times all the way through. And when I say multiple times, I mean, oh God, it must have been at least 6, 7, 8 times. it's insane like how much I've watched this show. So you'd think I'd be able to just sit and binge the book, but no, it's different, and I don't know why, and I don't know how to describe that it's different, but it just is. Like, maybe it's just because the show is like faster paced, so that I don't know. I don't think it's actually faster paced, but as in like I'm a slow reader because I'm dyslexic, and so like I can watch a show and binge it in like a day because it's like 8 episodes I think, whereas I couldn't binge read the book in a day. So it feels like it would be a faster way of me experiencing it than if I was reading it, which I think is maybe where it comes from. So as much as I can binge the show a million times, binging the book is a whole different thing because it takes a lot of brain power for me to be able to read, unfortunately, which it may not seem at times. I will say that I read 14 books in January, so people are going to be like, you're a slow reader? What do you mean 14 books? But yeah, I read 14 books in January, but then I am reading like all the time. I'm a slow reader, but I read all the time. On the bus, on the train, at home in the evenings, in bed, in the morning. I have audiobooks on in the car, so I'm like constantly consuming books. It's just I consume them at a slower rate. Apart from audiobooks, I consume those on night times too, so that does help. But yeah, anyway, so my point is I'm a bit of a rambler. That is something that you will find on this channel, just FYI. I'm a bit of a rambler, but I do enjoy talking about books. And yeah, I'm really excited to read more of this and to share more. And I think as soon as I have finished this in its entirety, I will do a book to screen adaptation kind of video to like summarize the changes between the two and what I think. Like, I don't think the show is better or worse than the book, and I don't think the book is better or worse than the show at the moment, but again, I'm only 40 pages in, but I can immediately tell in these 40 pages there are many differences, so I don't know. We'll see. I'm enjoying it so far, and I will definitely put up something when I finished it as a whole. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it so far. Go watch My Lady Jane. If you've watched it, tell me what you think of it, because it's epic, right? Epic. But do not give me spoilers for the last half of this book, because I know that the show finishes halfway through the book, so do not do that, because I actually want to get to that part by myself. But if you've watched the show or if you've read the book, let me know what you think. I'm very, very excited to continue, and I will do a proper intro to BookTube very soon.